reminder, two of the main stories from today's budget. The Chancellor is being accused of breaking a Conservative manifesto pledge by increasing the national insurance contributions that the self-employed pay. And small businesses have been given some relief over impending business rate changes, with a £435 million package, including a £300 million fund for local authorities to distribute to target individual hard cases. We're here to discuss the measures are Helen Dickinson, the Chief Executive of the British Retail Consortium, many of whose members have feared for their future over the rate shake-up, and Bryce, who's Chief Executive of the Association of Independent Professionals and the Self-Employed. So, Helen, let me start with you. Were you happy with what Philip Hammond announced today, £435 million?
I think the response from our membership, all the retailers that I've spoken to, has been perhaps lukewarm, shall we say. So really welcome the reliefs that have been offered for small businesses, for high streets up and down the country. But in the scheme of things, that's a sort of another sort of temporary sticking plaster to a system that is fundamentally broken and not fit for purpose of the 21st century.
So have you had much feedback from members this afternoon? I mean, obviously, big businesses, the likes of Sainsbury's, who've been railing against this today, they actually pay more in business rates than a lot of the smaller members that you may have.
Well, I think the issue sits right across the industry. So retail as a whole pays more than £2.31 for every £1 in corporation tax. So it's the biggest tax that the industry pays, and what we've got basically is a tax that is the highest compared to any other developed country in the world. So while on the one hand we've got corporation tax that's the lowest in the G20 or the G7, whichever it was that the Secretary of State was mentioning earlier, is a sort of complete disparity with a property tax system that's just gone out of line and needs to be sort of updated and made fit for purpose for the current modern way of doing business. So
what's been announced today, will it save jobs? Will it prevent some people in the retail sector from losing their jobs, do you think?
I think in the margins, certainly, absolutely, it will help some of the smaller businesses, some of those hit hardest. But in the scheme of what needs to change over the medium term in addressing some of the fundamentals of a system that was invented hundreds of years ago and just isn't fit for purpose in the modern world.
All right, well, Chris, let me bring you in at this point. The cost of lower national insurance contributions for the self-employed was due to hit £6 billion by 2020. That couldn't really continue, could it?
Well, that's the headline figure, Ian, but of course that cost is offset by the gain in employment that Britain's enjoyed since 2008, which is largely due to self-employment. In other words, you have a lot more people working than you would have otherwise.
But the Chancellor was making the point in his speech that self-employed and employed people both make demands of public services in exactly the same way. They're just not paying for it the same, and now they should do.
Well, that's true, but the employed also receive, very many other benefits that doesn't necessarily come from the public purse, which the self-employed have to pay for themselves, such as pensions, sick pay, holiday pay, and all those things that the employed get. So if you look at it that way, the trying to tax them as if they were the same is just blatantly unfair.
But the main point of national insurance contributions, or so we're always told, is it's all about entitlement to the state pension. Since the government introduced the new state pension, self-employed workers now build up their entitlements at the same rate as the employed. So there's less of a need for this difference, is there?
Well, I'm not entirely sure that that's accurate. I think that the government, whilst they're building up the new state pension, has also mandated auto-enrolment, which the self-employed have to pay out of their own pockets rather than their employers' pockets.
The government making the point that any self-employed person whose profits are less than 16,250 every year, they'll see no increase in their NICs whatsoever. I mean, how many self-employed people make more than that?
There'd be a considerable number. 16,250 is not very much above the tax threshold as it stands at the moment. But in fact, this will hit everybody starting at 16,250 all the way up. And it doesn't take very long to get quite a considerable sum of money in the mid-30s.
Well, Helen, talking of national insurance, Employers also pay national insurance contributions at 13.8%. That's kind of the elephant in the room in this discussion. It didn't really get mentioned at all. It's a significant disincentive to hire people, isn't it?
Well, I think that's, again, comes back, you were asking about what retailers are saying to me. What they're saying to me is if you look across all of taxes, so property-intensive, people-intensive businesses, like many retailers up and down the country, are getting overtaxed relative to their contribution in the economy, and that is what actually hits local investment in local jobs, in local communities, in particularly those communities that are perhaps more vulnerable, and that's the big sort of society worry question. We need to ensure that what we have is a tax system, whether it's for people in the wider parts of the economy or for businesses, that actually is fit for purpose in terms of the way that the modern economy actually works.